Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Junkie podcast. I am here with my bestie and co-host,
Olivia.
And for this super-powered episode, we want to welcome special guest Alex Hyde-White. Alex Hyde-White, who also goes by Punch, is a film and television actor, producer, and director born in Great Britain and raised in Southern California. In 1978, he signed with Universal Pictures as one of the last contract players in Hollywood and has appeared in films like S.H.I.E.L.D, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Pretty Woman, Catch Me If You Can, Nope, and the ones that we really want to talk about. He played Reed Richards in 1994's The Fantastic Four and has a cameo in The Fantastic Four First Steps. He also appeared in TV series like Newhart, Murder, She Wrote, Babylon 5, Party of Five, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Shameless, and Landman. He's also an author, having written the memoir in the volume My Life in Film and TV. Welcome, Punch. Welcome.
Wow. Wow, Sean. I want to meet that guy.
He sounds pretty impressive.
That was awesome.
Well, we did too.
That was awesome.
And ultimately, we're so happy to have you here. I mean, that is just such an impressive career over, your lifetime. And when I saw Pretty Woman on that list, I just had to know, is Julia Roberts as pretty in person as she is in movies?
She's even retained that glamour, no doubt about it. But, we were all young and pretty then. And yet she was, it was like, like walking in a countryside in spring, the day that the flowers are blooming. It was just a very rare occasion to be around a talent who was just beginning to recognize, to be recognized and sort of recognize within herself that she was enjoying it, had a lot of fun. And, soon after that, I think, it dawned on her what becoming a Hollywood star was going to be. And she's handled it very, very well. I don't stay. I mean, if I ran into her, it'd be lovely, but it's not like we've stayed in touch. But yeah, she was one of nature's gentlewomen, I would think,
I love that. I need a man to say that about me. Nature's gentlewoman, like walking into a field of flowers.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she was just, as you know, that's who she is, at least was then, very instinctive and organic,
Love that. Alex, tell us a little bit about how you first got into acting.
I was raised sort of in a trunk. In the theater. My dad was a British actor who had a long career, started in the 1920s and continued until sort of the early 80s. He was considerably older. He was, 55 when I was born. But he was a really interesting, unique, slightly eccentric. He said he had children every 30 years kind of thing.
Oh, my gosh.
Was well known in England. Wilfred Hyde-White was his name, was well known in England and was known enough in Hollywood to, have a career. And he bought a little house in the early 60s when he co-starred in My Fair Lady, which was it's the same story as Pretty Woman, which is, fitting for a sort of a legacy a story that follows us around. And he was in demand enough that he could live in Palm Springs and drive the 100 miles and do these wonderful old Universal shows like Macmillan and Wife and Columbo and things like that. And he was hired to be in the original Battlestar Galactica, the pilot, as one of the Council of 12 with Ray Milland, who was one time, I think he was the biggest male box office American star in the 50s. And so they were sitting, and by then they were lovely, two old half English, gentlemen enjoying, a cup of tea, so to speak, around 12 o'clock in a styrofoam cup. And so, my dad was no fool. These kind of jobs were a hell of a lot better than doing 8 shows a week in Brighton and in some recreation comedy. So, I was corrupted very early on. There's a wonderful line in Don Henley's I think Sunset Grill or something, that the lure of easy money has a very strong appeal, when you, and it all looked so magical and fun. And I just, for some dumb reason, I felt it was attainable if I applied myself. And I was a pretty bright kid. And so I was given an opportunity during that period because they were looking for boys to fly jets in space on Battlestar Galactica way back in 78, 79. And then that led to a couple of auditions, and they offered me a contract to start at Universal. So, my dad never helped me since. In fact, he kind of regret. Oh dear, what are you doing, Punchy? Oh dear, what are you doing? See, he was very competitive, but it was fun. So I sort of got to live right there. My dad actually came to live with me in L.A. for a while when he was working, and it was great. We got to spend a lot of close time together in the waning years of his career, the early years of mine, and that was very satisfying.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You mentioned contract, and I read that you were one of the last contract players.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a contract player? Well,
it means they're paying you every week. It was $350, I think, and that was and rent for the month was like $350. So they would pay you enough so that you didn't necessarily have to wait tables or drive a cab or other things that might not be worth admitting. But and then they would sort of act as your agent on the lot. And there was enough TV shows going. I mean, there was Quincy. I think I signed on a Monday, and on Tuesday I was on the set of Quincy with saying one line, and then 2 days later I was in Battlestar Galactica flying a jet and sitting on an apple box in front of a green screen. So the reality met fantasy pretty quick there, and I go, oh my God, is this it? And then they would sort of promote you within, and then if you got a job outside of Universal, they would get that contract and they'd maybe make a little money off you, and that worked. Jamie Lee Curtis, for instance, was with us at that time, and her Halloween, which probably wasn't a big movie at that time, but that would have been another studio, and so it was a good way to get discovered, to get sort of vouched for in a way, and supported. But there was also a faction of the industry that felt that it wasn't worth doing. But I'm a sucker for employment, so with that,
same.
I was happy to be a part of it.
Income.
It's funny, really, because an actor never really works. I mean, he has a job every once in a while. You get a job, and then you go to work for a few days, and then there's days, weeks, months go by. And then you get another opportunity. It's like, climbing a mountain. It takes you 8 months to figure it out and plan it and get up there. And then you're on the summit for half a day before they say, we got to get you out of here. And, it's very similar life as a journeyman actor. But I've played big parts in small movies, and I played small parts in big movies. And the small movies, they last for a few weeks. The big movies, it just can be a couple of days, but tremendously satisfying. Yeah, I look at it all as sort of one big journey.
Yeah,
because it repeats itself. It's amazing. That's part of the theme of my book. There's a great line in Shakespeare. I think it's in Hamlet. The whirly gig of time comes full circle. And it's like, whoa, what's that mean? And, so the great line, whirly, what's a whirly gig? Well, an acting career is a whirly gig. Oh my gosh, it scares the beast out of us.
Yeah. That's so interesting. As one of the last people, do you think that the industry is better or worse with, those kind of contract gigs going away?
Well, they've come back in a funny sort of way because so many groups use the same people. So, they're more privatized. I think it's harder to break through now as an actor unless you do one of two things: get very lucky young in a Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt kind of, or Julia Roberts kind of way. Lucky meaning, luck is being in the right place at the right time. Talent is the ability to get work. So if you look at that as a quotient, you add those two together, you get an opportunity. And then if it's a hit, then tried and true rubric of the business is if it's a hit, then you're popular. That's the same then, and that's the same now. I think people get more opportunity now. A guy like Bradley Cooper, for instance, who has become, a top name actor director. He started out, I don't know quite where he started out, probably, fairly modest, but he was playing supporting roles and things, and he graduated up. I think it was harder when I was younger and getting opportunities in indie films. I guess the greatest example is probably the silly old Fantastic Four movie. That if it didn't work out, if a project didn't work out, didn't meet expectation, it was deemed you were sort of a part of that not working out. Nowadays, I think actors are insulated by the commercial success, and much more. Yeah. Well, I think there's much more work. There's much more product.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that I think of a young actors or people say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Hollywood. My first piece of advice has always been, oh, that's great. Take Fountain, because the rest of the streets are extremely crowded. But create content. And I think the business is rewarding content creators. More than they are sort of the traditional actors who've gone to acting school and gone through Juilliard and whatnot. So I think a contract system would be very valuable now. It seems like the contracts are content deals with Netflix or somebody. Somebody has $1 million deal with Netflix, but they're a star.
Yeah.
So Lena Dunham, I think several years ago, broke out with so every once in a while. But you have to be a producer more these days. If you're going to be an actor, you really have to understand that you're producing yourself. I don't like to say brand. It's not a brand. You're a human being,
Yeah.
So as you can tell, the worldly gig of time is rolling around in my head.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think you see that a lot with like Margot Robbie and her production studio. Sydney Sweeney is also had a lot of quotes around how it was very hard for her to make good money early on. And that's why she's gotten into producing and gotten into these brand deals and things like that. But yeah, that's so interesting that it still exists, but it's less through the studios.
It's more privatized. It's more
the agents, and
she had to get a good job though before being given that chance, didn't she? I mean, Sweeney. Look at Pedro. Look at Pedro Pascal. You go and look, and you see that sort of chubby
his
cheeks.
Buffy cameo.
Yeah.
I mean, loved that.
Hell, it looks like I worked with him on Murder, She Wrote. He's not quite that old, but I mean, my Lord, it's like 80s.
Right?
Whoa.
Yeah. When you were talking, I was thinking of Pedro Pascal. I mean, he was on so many like SVU episodes. He had like a 1 episode arc in Buffy. And I think we see a lot of that in the 90s and the 2000s where these actors were around and then they just got one movie that really exploded into their career. And I love Pedro Pascal, so I've
he's terrific.
Everybody loves Pedro.
How could you not?
It was Game of Thrones, wasn't it? That wonderful exotic character that just lit it up.
Oberyn Martell. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Getting his skull crushed in. And it's interesting to think, too, when you mentioned like actors who have those contracts with, Netflix or Hulu. I was just thinking the other day, like Haley Joel Osment. I've seen him in so many Netflix things recently.
Yeah.
And he's kind of having this career come back from being a child star. And I'm like, he has to have a contract with Netflix going on here.
Yeah, well, whether it's explicit or just sort of understood that they like him. And, look, the business is really casting directors selling their talent that they want to help, selling them to the producers. And the easier that can be for everybody, then if you happen to be the recipient of that, if you're in that lane, and the older I get, man, I know the older I get, if I could just stay alive and healthy, the fewer the less competition there is. When I was young, I was a decent looking young fella, and I had some sort of pizzazz. I had a gift of the gab, half English, half American. And I came close, and there was a lot of competition. I mean, I remember going up to the movie Taps, I think, or or and that's and everybody's in that movie. It's Tom Cruise and all that bit. So I didn't get those, and so I had to wait. And then I sort of got my things, and then built on it and crafted a career and of experience that is well worth celebrating. I mean, even if I say so myself, because I really enjoyed writing the memoirs and reliving it. But I've realized now that I'm sort of, I don't know, Alex the White or Alex the Gray. I'm now sort of, I'm in a slightly different arena, still waiting sort of to be picked. But
well, I'd hire you for an English actor any day, because
yeah,
that's a great one. Shauna,
I get a lot of English parts.
Very mystery pop with our accents. Like, it'll start one way and then it'll become like a completely different accent.
We have terrible accents on the show.
Unless it's like a newsboy. Shauna's got that down.
Great old-timey accents, of course.
It has to come in every episode. I mean, I do believe like being an actor is such a... has such a need for self-confidence and self-belief, and you kind of have to have this thick skin to go through it. I mean, of all the roles you've done and all the individuals you've worked with, like, what are the most memorable ones for you that you've kind of seen throughout your career that maybe are unique or, really stuck out when you were writing your memoir?
Well, I approached it from that philosophy of sort of celebrate the peak moments and then tie them together with real life, and sort of not be afraid of the truth, bearing in mind that reflecting back, the truth has a tendency to become a bit of a myth, and so you print the myth. But I was not afraid of recalling who I was during these periods of waiting for other opportunities to celebrate. And what comes to mind really, are the hits. Pretty Woman was a wonderful confluence of events that wouldn't have happened for me to join that cast had it not been for Bob Newhart liking me on his CBS sitcom in the last couple of years of his Vermont Inn character, and that really wouldn't have happened for me if I hadn't have been on a roll of indie movies and a couple of Roger Corman. There was a period where I was working a lot in the I guess it was 89, 90, 91. And it culminated with joining the cast of what became one of the defining romantic comedies of the late 20th century. So, it's not simply, I got Pretty Woman. It's like, I don't know, it's like a bad relationship. It's getting really bad now, but it started like 8 years ago,
Yeah.
So that's the journey. And highlighted by both the peaks of a Newhart in TV, getting this great part in sort of high comedy, which is something that I didn't have many opportunities to do, and I didn't really know if I could do it or not at that level. That helped me understand that. And then, of course, when they were casting Pretty Woman, they were looking for someone exactly that, who can be not so much comedic, but who could be light yet classy, and I guess, wealthy. And I put on a suit and I have nice hair. It's okay. That's fine. But that was the character. And it ended up being the romantic foil to Richard Gere in Pretty Woman in a condensed way. But that was the character. Yeah. And that was given to me. I earned it. I earned it by sort of working my way up to that. Yeah. And then when Spielberg sort of rediscovered me, unknowingly, that on Catch Me If You Can, to hire me just for a day to play the divorce lawyer, because there was a hole in their script. There was a hole in their story that they wanted to fill with him and Jeff Nathanson, the screenwriter for Catch Me If You Can. Why does Leonardo run away and create this life of an imposter? And it's because he was running away from the discord at home, his parental, and that wasn't in the original story.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I had auditioned for I think the father of one of his early girlfriend, which ended up being played by Martin Sheen, which is probably the first time I've ever lost a job to Martin Sheen. But
I'll take that.
Yeah, so the agent called back and said, "Look, Martin Sheen's playing that other part, but they've added this other character, and they think that this might work." So I went in and I got it. And I'm sitting in a little 12 by 15 one-bedroom set on old Lacey Street Studios in Glendale, which is not known for necessarily doing big-budget films, put it that way. And is Leonardo sitting right here on the bed next to me, and there's Chris Walken and Spielberg, and he introduces me to everybody on the because we all met. I think it was almost everybody's first day, except for Leo. And he said, "This is Alex." And I go, "Sir, do you mind, Stephen? Can I just say something before we start?" He goes, "Well, of course." And I said, "Junior, count to 20 in Greek." And he goes, "No." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What, in Alamosa?" And I go, "Yeah." And so here he is, like he's a kid saying, "Look, this is Alex. Oh, he was young Henry Jones in Indiana Jones and Last Crusade." Because, he doesn't miss a trick. He knows exactly. I mean, Stephen's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He's smart. He's a leader in many, many ways. I don't have to say that. But what I can say is that when he's in the sandbox, when he's playing with the kids, he's a kid. Mm-hmm. He loves making movies. And, that was a wonderful moment personally. And it's a life moment when, you share a laugh with Spielberg and he sort of promotes you in the moment. And then he said, "God, Then we break, because this is in the old days before they invented digital cameras. This was analog film. So, where they're setting up the shot for half an hour, we're walking off and he goes, he says, "Hey, I didn't put it together. I didn't remember you from, I didn't put it together from Indy, but, I just liked your audition." He said,
that's amazing.
It's all right, man. I've seen most of your movies. We're good.
I love that movie. I haven't seen it in ages, but that has always been one of my favorites.
One of his best.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Light touch. It has such a light touch to it.
Right. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I saw another movie on your list was Nope. That came out recently. I adore that movie too. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
It's a great segue because Jordan is, he's the new Spielberg in the sense of crafting stories using sort of tropes and archetypes. And he's right there at Universal. His offices are very close to Amblin, and I was talking to him about that. And Stephen, he went and kissed the ring. Over at Amblin, I went over and saw Stephen, and Universal really likes Jordan, and he's a true talent. Of course, he writes his material, and he's a bit like Rod Serling in a way. He loves that genre of science mystery in a way, science adventure. Yeah. And I would love to talk about a stable in the modern day sort of version of a contract. I think the time is running out for me to join Chris Nolan's stable because I don't know, maybe the older I
get in there, man.
Someday Ian McKellen might not be available. Who knows? But still,
right.
I met him on a movie. I'd love to work in those films, but I would be very happy, and I wouldn't be surprised in a sort of slightly egocentric way, if you'll forgive me, if I end up working with Jordan again, because we got along really well, and it was a fun experience.
Yeah, I think Jordan Peele is so interesting and such an interesting arc, right? To go from like the Key and Peele show into writing a movie, directing, and then just really exploding from there. So, props to Comedy Central for giving them a chance and that show. That show was amazing. I don't know if
it's
you've ever
hilarious.
seen it, but I absolutely loved it.
Yes. Do you have a genre, Alex, that you feel most comfortable working in? Comedy, action, horror, romance?
I like action. I like adventure. And I'm still in good shape. I'd love to play like a Harrison Ford part in so action and moving around. And even I did it a bit when I was younger. It's a great example because with exception of a couple of films like Witness or Regarding Henry or one or two more, Harrison's Ford energy is that of almost comedic but humorous, almost melodramatic but dramatic. And so it's that light comedy, light drama way that, I think is where charisma lies, every Daniel Day or Sean Penn, they sort of cornered the market on, exhausting intensity, and it's wonderful. And I'm not a comedian firecracker of a comedian. And so I like that sort of light drama of Pretty Woman, or even Catch Me If You Can in a way. And then, of course, light comedy, which is very close. But I like action adventure movies. Somebody asked me the other day what would I really want to do in a job, and I go, I'd like to sort of do a globe-trotting or even just a European shoot and something that's just moving around, even a period piece. I like action in terms of being active. I like moving. I like to play tennis, but it's a short court. We move 3 yards at a time. So, I need a bigger boat.
Well, speaking of an action adventure movie that you did, we are going to take a quick break and then talk about The Fantastic Four from 1994. So let's talk about The Fantastic Four. You were the first actor to play Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic on film in a movie directed by Oli Sassoon. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Oh, I love that picture. That's so wonderful.
Look at that. That's,
oh, wow. That's amazing.
Flash Gordon
it's
almost. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the movie never got released. So let's start from the beginning and tell us about how you got involved in the Fantastic Four.
Well, it might also be fortunately that movie never got released. So, again, I was on a roll, and I'd done I think 2 films for the Roger Corman Studios. One that I sort of played a co-lead of a time travel adventure where I'm the Robin Hood kind of character. They went back to medieval England, and I had these lovely hair extensions. Edgar of Mansfield, I think it was. And Roger was great at tapping into what were current sort of genres, and Willow had come out, and I had a couple of meetings with Ron Howard for that part, of course, which went to Val like it should have. He was a god at that time. But I was bummed. That was exactly the kind of part that I relished playing, a sense of history and light comedy, and I loved it. I probably wasn't as good, or probably wasn't as able to pull it off as like Val was, but that's okay. But I was bummed, as you can tell. That was 35 years ago, and I'm still bummed about it. But but I loved that. And then Roger ended up. Roger Corman's studio, a guy named Howard Cohen, I think, was the director and writer, wrote this thing called Time Trackers, where like Kathleen Beller and Will Schreiner goes back in time, and then she meets and falls in love with Edgar of Mansfield. And they hired me to play that part off of an audition, and the fact that, Roger trusted me. And that gave me, I suppose, an understanding of what it meant to work in that circumstance, in those circumstances. Not that one really needed it, but there really weren't a lot of options for movie and TV. I think maybe cable TV had started, of course, but prior to that, there were 3 television networks and maybe 4 movie studios, and they were going through a bit of a recession. So again, I'm a sucker for employment, and I think one of my manager friends asked me, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, because they offered it to me, you idiot. I mean, come on." But the great thing that I've always found, still to this day, about independent film is if it's a movie, it's usually a passion project that somebody has brought to fruition. Case in point, Jordan Peele's early work. And when one is up for a part in that movie of any significance, you're going to walk into that room. They're going to be there, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. and it's going to be their decision, and they're pretty much going to make it in the moment. Whereas a television can be, a committee, and it's different. Television shows, they run at such a pace that, they can cast it at the train station if they need to. But people take their independent film projects very, very seriously, very close to heart. Yeah. So when I was called in to, when I was given the script of original Fantastic Four, I didn't know too much about. I wasn't. I was not a New York East Coast comic book Marvel boy. I mean, I liked cartoons. Mm-hmm. It's not like I know everything about this part. You got it. I didn't care. Like, oh my God.
He's stretchy, cool.
Right. I wanted to, I met the moment. And I worked really hard on the scene and just learned the lines. And I went in and I gave this very natural take. And it just turns out, it's like, blind duck hits a pole. The part was right for me, and I was right for the part, and I walked out of that room with the job, and it took about a couple of days. I was taking a friend to the airport, Max Caulfield, British actor, an old friend of mine, and Max is the kind of guy who's always trying to keep his ear to the casting grindstone. Punch, have you heard about this film, Fantastic Four? There's a wonderful part. And I go, oh, really? I'm driving him to the airport. And he goes, yes, I've tried to get up. I can't get up for it. But you should talk to your people. And I go, oh, okay, cool, thanks. And this was, my pager went off. I'll tell you, come on, what was this, 1992? My pager went off.
Yeah.
I said, Max, we're at LAX right there. Max, stay in the car for a minute. Don't get it towed. I went to the payphone, made a call. Mark Malice, my manager, said they've offered you Reed Richards in Fantastic Four. And I go, no shit. He goes, yeah. I go, great. Okay, fine. Do you want to do it? And I go, well, yeah, come on, shut up. Goodbye. I go back to Max. Say, hey, Max, I don't think I need to meet on that movie, Fantastic Four. Well, why not? He said, because they bloody well just offered it to me. He said, oh, all right. Well, thank you for the ride.
I feel so British.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was right for the part. Yeah, the part was right for me. Yeah. And I think that there was a sense of urgency, and they just didn't have time to hire somebody to find a better date. And it ended up working out.
Is there something about the character of Reed that you most identify with or that you appreciate the most about him? I'm a big Marvel fangirl.
Yeah,
and I love the Fantastic Four. And Reed is so interesting because he's brilliant and often to his own detriment, right? Like it can kind of bite him in the butt sometimes because he's so smart. He comes off a little awkward. Is there something that you like the most about him or that you identify with?
Well, yeah, I think what I've really identified with Reed, and I'm a little envious of, is that as long as he sort of stays in his lane, given the fact that he literally has a psychological and physical ability to expand the air. I don't know how to stretch on this thing, but he can fill the space. Okay, he can change. Well, he doesn't change. He just elongates himself. So he's capable of doing more. Okay, he's literally capable of doing more. That he can get away with anything as long as he stays in character. And I don't think he really doubts himself that much. He always has that whirligig going on.
The whirligig.
That, as fast as he goes, as fast as he is capable of going, and as flexible as he is to be able to take on, more stress on his body, he always wants more, and he's never really satisfied. So, that can be annoying. That can be a lot of things which are all very human. But ultimately, he's going to be the greatest problem solver you're going to find in pretty much in pop culture, I think.
100%. One of the greatest Marvel geniuses or pop culture geniuses.
With independent films, I feel like you never really know, if it's going to hit, but it's more like, hey, I read the script, I'm interested in it. I have to take a jump and a guess on this new director or this lower budget. How are we going to get into that? I watched the movie last night, actually.
The old one?
And yes, the 1994 one. Yeah. So, you were a good-looking man and are still.
I say were. Come on.
No, yes, yeah. Were is the wrong word. But yeah, no, I was raised on the 2000s Fantastic Four. So it was cool to see the movie itself. But what's crazy about this is it was unreleased, right? But it became such a cult classic. And I want to kind of like, when did you first hear that this movie was like bootleg being released and people were
had a little
loving
second
it
life?
And, yeah.
A couple of years. I think we started filming around Thanksgiving 92 and we finished early in 93 and did some reshoots, which was a little strange because somebody must have felt that the film was good enough to just add a little more to the ending, which we did about a month or 6 weeks later. And I'd learned enough during the making of the film that there was an audience out there for this material, and went to the producer and the head of Rogers Studio, nice fellas, said, look, I want to put together a press tour. And I've got a press agent, cowboy friend of mine, who was very good at that kind of stuff. And so we hired him on at friendly rates, and Roger said, I can't pay for anything, but I can give you 1,000 stills. And so he printed up 1,000 stills of the picture of I guess it's this headshot, which is a color shot of me and Rebecca. And I went around the country, and Michael Bailey Smith, who played Ben Grimm, has become a good friend. He was a former Army Ranger and a college football player, big guy. He and I, he would join me, and we'd be this double act showing up at comic book stores in New York or Florida, or we went to conventions, and we did that for almost a year, on and off during the season. And boy, oh boy, and Roger, they also gave us a copy of the trailer that they had made. And so we were out there promoting the film in sort of old-fashioned actor-manager style. We're taking the show to the audience, sort of touring the prop. And, after a while, when people said, when's it going to come out? You just had to start saying, it's going to come out early next year.
Soon.
Yeah. And it sort of, I think what happened was, it might have happened anyway, but I really feel that, for one thing, we took advantage of that interregnum, that in-between time when a film was in post-production. And I know Ole, the director, on his own dime, was working over the summer of 93, slowly trying to, light it and color correct it. And the music guys were working. So, a lot of people worked a lot harder on this film than I did, but I was doing my bit, beating the bushes, finding the audience and taking these pictures and showing them props of the movie and just telling them, like I am with you lovely people 35 years later. And they were 8, 9, 12-year-old kids and their parents, and they loved it. And so it might have indeed been a way to, it's like proof of concept in a way that, hey, this movie, you better watch out, because this movie might mess up your franchise if you don't buy it and kill it.
Yep.
Which is the, it's sort of the myth of the story. And for the longest, then of course we were, then I think it was actually my publicist who had arranged, there was talk of being in the Rose Parade that year in New Year's of 94, because it was like Journeys to Space, or it was some futuristic theme. And soon after that, they said, well, we're going to launch it at the Mall of America in Minneapolis, which was a popular home for early screenings of film.
Always wanted to go.
Yeah, I don't know if we really were. I don't know and I don't think anybody put a deposit down on the theater, but who knows? The guy might have been a fan. What the heck? And we got right to that point. And then the earthquake of 94 happened, and I was living right by the beach. It rocked the earthquake. The earthquake rocked my world. And then about a week later, they said, okay, Fantastic Four is done and not going to happen.
So I watched the documentary, the Doomed one.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of talks about, what led to the film not being released. Can you talk a little bit about, what you guys heard and, Stan Lee's involvement in that?
Well, Stan Lee became a very well-known pop culture older statesman,
Yeah.
But when you look at the later years of his life, it's not a happy situation. He had people around him, and he obviously, I think he deserved better. But I didn't know him then. I do remember him coming to the set of the movie at least once, and I'm pretty damn sure he brought donuts. At least that's what I wrote. And there was just and it's almost heartwarming in a way, because it really it might be what Marvel was in the beginning. They were sort of naive and blind to the corruption of the world. They were creating these. They created these alternate universes, and they filled them very credibly and very thoroughly. And when he would later on, when these other Fantastic Four, well, I guess before the other ones started coming out, you'd read occasionally, now Stan Lee says that this other movie was never destined to happen. I'm like, well, that's not what I remember, Stan. But I wasn't going to, what am I going to say? Stan Lee doesn't know what he was talking about. I think, he was just, he was friendly and supportive until he wasn't. And, a guy like that, you kind of figure you want to take on the man a bit,
Yeah.
I think that, again, they were so desperate, not so desperate. They were so invested in their work making this transition to film. Mm-hmm. And that's the corruption. That's the corruptive lure of this business. People get into movies and TV. Everybody wants to be an actor or a director. And only if you have enough money can you be a producer. And they end up being film critics or, acting coaches and all that bit. And that's fine. But you got to be careful about having this undercurrent of resentment or this undercurrent of I've never really belonged and I'm kind of angry, okay. When you create something that's as important as it's proven to be, like the original Kirby and Lee and all those other great folks in those early days of Marvel, then, that's it, man. That's your thing. It doesn't need to be it's not any more important because they made lousy movies out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you seen the 2000s Fantastic Fours with Chris Evans and
and Jessica Alba?
Most importantly.
Ewan Griffith, right? The Welsh actor was the first one, right?
Yep, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then Chris Evans, but wasn't that Silver Surfer?
So there was 2 Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans as Johnny Torch.
Right.
And then they moved into the Fantastic Four that came out a couple years ago that wasn't...
Teller, Michael B. Jordan.
Yes, which, he got his other shot at Marvel, of course, but not
Who
so...
Did?
Yeah, he was Killmonger in the Black Panther movies.
Oh, well, Black Panther. Yeah, yes. But it's such a big movie. That doesn't need to be a Marvel movie. That was just that was a big thing, Mm-hmm. I went and saw the first one. I was high hopes. And the trouble with it, Ewan Griffith's a good actor, well cast. The trouble of it is that they weren't the Fantastic Four. They had no identity.
Yep.
And they tried to sort of make it the Ben Grimm, the Michael Chiklis story. And I know the writer, who's a golfing friend of mine named Mark Frost. And, I said to him, why the hell did you open that movie with Ben Grimm causing a traffic jam?
Yeah.
Wrecking the bridge and causing a traffic jam. I said, a hero is supposed to recover from mayhem, but not create the mayhem in the first place, okay?
Yeah.
So it's okay for Ben Grimm or the Thing to have this. Look, the guy changes. It's like the Hulk. He can have these psychological difficulties that he can act out. He can punch a window or stuff but he cannot go and put innocent people in danger, specifically at the opening of the film. It just, it loses credibility. And I just think it was a result of them trying to, again, it's almost the same. They were so desperate to make it work that they undercut the any sort of creative authority, and it ended up probably being, about a camel is a horse made by committee. Yeah.
I totally agree. I think that those movies had, I don't know, maybe at the time, seeing them, you're excited. Oh, cool. Fantastic Four is on the big screen. But all the characters feel a little one note and a little exploitative with Sue.
Yeah.
She's just
Yeah.
kind of the sexy one, and her clothes are off. And so I'm glad that it got the Marvel treatment that it did with Fantastic Four: First Steps, which you were actually in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I have a little bit. Well,
Yeah.
it was the working backwards. The wonderful thing about being part of the cast and publicity arm of that film was I was welcomed personally right from the beginning, as we all were. There was 4 of us, and Kevin Feige. We had a lovely chat with him. Never met him before, and within 10 seconds of meeting him, it was obvious that I was meeting someone who was a fan of A, no doubt, pop culture, B, Marvel product. He's probably the global expert on Marvel. That's, he's so responsible for it all. But he was also a fan of my part, my performance in that movie, and talking to me about that. And which is a great way to look. You want to have a nice conversation with an actor. You say, "Hey, I really liked you in that movie." Now you happen to own that movie, so that's a nice place to be. We're just talking briefly. He said he'd seen the documentary, and I said, "Yeah, the documentary was good." And I said, "Look, it's just I really liked your film. I loved your relationships, the heartfelt energy, the heartfelt relationships, and really liked what you guys did." And I go, "Well, it's very hard, I think, to make a film where there's 4 leads,
Yep.
And we didn't. We didn't run away from the origin story led by this very busy, over hyper smart guy, and then he brings the others along, okay." And that's the one thing that the other Fantastic Four movies didn't have. Mm-hmm. And Kevin said he worked on the first one when Lauren Schuller Donner produced, I guess, the 2005 version. And that was lovely because there's a common ground there, because one of my early directors that I worked with, who I so admired and wrote about in the book, was Richard Donner, who's Superman director and Lauren's husband, and died several years ago. But, and so one would think that the actor who played the original Reed Richards in this wicked stepchild of a version of a film, meeting Kevin Feige, who now has a copy of me bootlegging my character in order to put in the cover of my book, we're suddenly talking about so many we have such common ground. And I realized, again, like we were talking earlier, it's you can be the prince or you can be the pauper, and that really doesn't matter if there is a shared humanity, if there is which is something that's very maybe it's more prevalent now in the industry, and maybe there's more nicer people now with new generations coming up. But I just found that being a part of it and being welcomed and being appreciated, even in a very, very small way, filmically, in First Steps, was a validation of what up until very recently was either a mistake of a film or a happy accident of a film. And it just completely turned the narrative, which is an overused phrase these days. But suddenly now the story of my life vis-a-vis Fantastic Four has this wonderful sort of exclamation point, epilogue. And, again, like with Jordan, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be working for Kevin and Marvel again, because
I totally agree.
We kept our mouth shut and did a fun job. And, that movie was such a tight edit. There's no fat in that film. It's an extraordinary film in a way. It's almost a new presentation of a wonderful pop culture kind of story. It's not at all indulgent. When you look at it, it's really very simple in its linear structure.
Yeah.
They just you learn about them. There's the galactic threat, and then the bully comes to town, and they push him in a hole. I mean, that's really what it is.
They don't even show the accident, which I think is so interesting for a Fantastic Four movie. Yeah.
No, there's a thing now. I think that people are tired of origin stories because
Yep.
usually sequels are origin stories.
Yeah.
So where's the origin story of this Fantastic Four myth? Hey, it's in my book. I got a copy of the script. You saw the movie last night, and funnily enough, you're saying earlier, this movie was never released. It was never seen, and Olivia, Shauna, more people have seen this movie in 34 years than ever would have seen it had it been.
I absolutely
it is
agree.
Crazy to I was like, wait, whenever I was doing research to chat with you, I was like, wait, this never actually got released. Like, how is this so widely circulated? Yeah. So
I didn't realize it either. Yeah, I never realized that because I'm a fan of the Fantastic Four and of Marvel, and then researching this deeper, I'm like, wait. No, this wasn't a widely released movie because, you said, Olivia, I feel like people have seen this. So,
yeah. And if there's one group of fans who have passion, it is ultimately Marvel, right?
Yes.
And so they will gobble up, any comic books, any movies, any lore. So they do have a devout fan base, and it's so interesting to through this conversation. I feel like from what you enjoy about the industry, it's passion, and who you've enjoyed working with are people who are so passionate about what they do and not necessarily so focused on the success of something, but the love of making art. And so
and a film.
I do have, how did you guys film your stretching? What was the, what were the practical effects of that?
A great question.
I was there for 2 steps of the third step process. When the first one was basically rigging Land of the Giants can opener under my costume and the rigging out to the back. And my arm would be back here and it would shoot out. So I would sort of start with real hand, going this way. And then they'd cut. And then the rigging arm would be the second part. And then the third part was whatever sort of remedial special effects they had to sort of throw the punch. And, it looks rickety, but, it doesn't look that much worse.
It's not that
bad. The $500,000 special effect that it would cost to do it. Yeah, it really doesn't look much worse. I mean, an arm is not supposed to do that. So,
it's always going to be uncanny valley. Whoa. That's always it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a practical gag. But, when Pedro as Reed is, he's doing his Tarzan number in the beginning of the movie. And then at the end, boom, boom, his legs are stretching, his arms are stretching. Yeah, well, that's cool. I mean, but we couldn't do that then. It was all very practical, very analog.
I love a good
it is so interesting because you look at a big criticism of the Marvel universe today is it's so much CGI, right? Where there aren't enough practical effects. And then, you look at the 1994, it was all practical effects versus CGI. So it was interesting to see. The whole time I was like, I got to ask this guy about how his arm stretched. And many questions, many thoughts, but
mostly arms.
For clearing it up. Yeah, mostly arms.
Well, the project, our old movie has a warm place in many people's hearts, and I think a lot of it is because they either were influenced by it, liked it, or their dads or moms liked it, and they were 8, 9, 10, 13, 14 years old, and now. They're either middle management at companies, and if they're in the business, they're working for a director. They're working their way up in a position of influence in various avenues. And the ones who are in the film business, they're rediscovering it, and it's a way of them sort of celebrating their childhood as well. And so they embrace us.
Yeah. Celebrating that passion too, that they can see, like you mentioned earlier, when you make an independent film, you put your heart and soul into it. It's a passion project. So I'm sure anybody, who is involved or sees it now is like, they worked their asses off to make this movie. This was, they really cared about this movie.
Well, as Jamie Lee said when she won her Oscar for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. She said, who would have thought that this little movie that we're shooting in Simi Valley would have come out so good? Well, the writers and directors thought it would, and that, you're lucky to get, and, she's great. And she's we started out together, and I spoke to her like, I don't know, like a year and a half ago. She came into my audiobook studio in L.A. I wasn't there, but she called afterwards, and we had a nice catch up.
Oh.
She's a hardworking gal, and she's discerning, but she's not afraid of it. She'll do anything. I mean, she's not I don't mean she'll do anything in terms of a job, but she'll do anything in service of what she wants to do. And she's terrific. But again, she's the daughter of troopers.
Oh gosh, I adore her.
When you're in the tribe, you keep the colors.
So let's talk a little bit about what's next, Alex, and what you're promoting right now.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, we're talking this independent film world, sort of people rather, trying to get projects going. It's happening now. There's two films. Lovely. One is I think it's a sort of a light drama film to be shot in the Midwest, where I play. I think it's called. What is it? A Christmas Drawn Together, and they've offered me this part of a cartoonist father of the hero, who is. It's almost like a Hallmark kind of dynamic. The 20-year-old, mid-20s, late 20s corporate type in the city. She's
big city girl goes home.
Yeah,
discovers Christmas again.
and instead of falling in love with a horse or fellow who
Oh my God. Or Frosty the Snowman. That was a great one.
Yeah, right. But I mean, but the part is a lovely part, and I think it came to me because of the very same reason. The guy knows me from this kind of work, and he said he was impressed with our documentary and the way I came off, and he pitched me to his producer and director, and they've offered me the role. And
Wonderful.
To which they thank you, it's lovely, I like the script, and in parentheses, I hope you get to make this movie. Still have to put it together, but it's nice when nothing's a guarantee. And then there's another one. A guy in Atlanta has this sort of period piece that he wants me to play, this slightly larger than life character. So I got to be careful what I wish for, because like you asked me what I want to do. I want to play these sort of I want to play one or two more, God willing, dynamic characters that are in action, that are actually doing stuff, not just the cut to the guy doing a scene to pull the story along, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Those are our jobs, and those are the things that we do. Like I was given a nice little part in Landman when nobody knew what that show was going to be, and then of course it came out 8 months later, and it was appointment television. It was just extraordinary the way that they captured that the life of in the basin, in the oil slicks. And I played a nice, fun English character in the same sort of way that Jordan let me play a English character, a quest giver who sends Daniel on his way. So, these parts have significance. They have meaning. They are important to storytelling. And when I get to do them, I feel like a pinch hitter on an all-star team. I'm getting it at bat.
Yeah.
Getting it at bat, and it's only going to be one at bat, and I maybe get 2 or 3 pitches, and boom. Okay, I'll hit, or I'm not going to strike out. I promise you, I will not strike out. I promise you that.
I'm gonna nail this.
Come on, coach, put me in. Let's get an old-timers game. Let's go.
Oh, I love that. And can you let everyone know, again, what the name of your book is, and I guess where people can find it? I'm sure anywhere, yeah.
Oh, yeah. My wind down is Alex Hyde-White. If you can spell it, I'm easy to find. Got a nice website. My audiobook shingle is called Punch Audio, which, as you can see, is my middle name. And I've been producing audiobooks now for almost 15 years. And in a 40-year acting career, produced 2 independent movies, of which I'm very proud of. And in 15 years, I've produced over 500 audiobooks through Punch Audio. So I'm going to stick with that. And always working on stuff. We're really good with independent authors. But I enjoy running the audiobook company. And now that I'm not in Hollywood chasing the golden ticket all the time, I've got a little more time, because you can work anywhere. I mean, I've got agents in Atlanta and London. And a couple of years ago, I released my book, which is called In the Volume, My Life in Film and TV. And it is episodic. It's written in episode. Instead of chapters, I call them episodes. And instead of acts, I call them, they're acts instead of sections. And so I named the 5 acts of my life story after 5 of the most influential films in my life. You know, things like Star Wars and Patriot Games and Heat and Last of the Mohicans, things like that. And it's a good chronology, a time travel in a way, a fantasy time travel love letter to pop culture. I'm a pop culture junkie as well. I just didn't know I met you guys. And so, you know, it's out there and it's on audiobook and it's a lot of fun. Anybody who has a fondness for that golden era in a way of movies becoming what they became, but yet still hanging on to the old fashioned or the analog innocence of it. That's in there. It's the ups and downs of my life. It's not a celebrity at tell all. It's not a star letting you in on secrets. I'm not. I'm a guy who's had a few nice at bats, and I enjoyed sort of writing about the game.
I love that.
That is
I'm gonna
so
have
wonderful.
to check out 5 Guys on it's one of the audiobooks they produced.
Oh, okay.
I was looking through them and I was like, I wonder if I've read any. I am a crazy reader, so I have listened to a lot of audiobooks in my life as well. But yeah, I was just looking through the list.
Some out.
Yeah, 5 Guys, a reverse
That could be about
harem.
burgers. Oh, the reverse.
Yeah, that's code. There's nothing reverse about it.
Yeah.
That is right up our alley, Punch.
Yes.
Listen.
Yeah.
I mean, those authors are wonderful. The authors of that stuff, they're so fun. I mean, they're such realists. It's
You
great.
can't take it too seriously. Yeah. I think that is just about going to wrap up this fantastic episode of Pop Culture Junkie. Alex, Punch, thank you so much for joining us today. One more time, tell our listeners where they can find you online. What are your social media handles, if you have those?
AlexHyde-White.com is my website. My name is up there on Facebook and Twitter. I'm learning how to use Instagram, but I'm going to be at the Sun Festival again in January. If anybody's up there, it's going to be the last one in Park City. I've been going there for 20 years. I love it. And what's left of the independent film world is it's still there. It's not much anymore, but I'm around. I'm easy to find, and I'm happy to send copies of the book or pictures of Marvel fans.
Love that. And we'll send you a Pop Culture Junkie t-shirt as well. Yes.
It's a collector's item.
It is, absolutely. You can find all things Pop Culture Junkie on our website, popculturejunkie.com. From there, you can find our podcast on all platforms, as well as our social media links, blog posts, and more. You can contact us, join our Pop Culture Junkie support group on Facebook. Follow, subscribe, rate, and review, all of that and more. And please join our Patreon, because every subscription helps us bring you more great episodes like this one. Find us at patreon.com/popculturejunkiepodcast. Once again, thank you so much, Alex Hyde-White. Everybody make sure to come back next week for another hit of pop culture.
The Pop Culture Junkie podcast is produced by Jeff Markin and Cheryl Lightfoot for the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.